furniture tree, furniture tree.
Assembling your new fabric base. Open up all the packages and you should include two sides, one head, foot end, one footboard, set of slats and a centre rail. Some brackets, some smaller feet brackets for some models. First identify your screws. You should have a bunch of small screws. These are for the brackets. You will need a Phillips head screwdriver, and then for the longer screws you'll need a posi screwdriver. So with all the bolts and the washers, just attach those together. Setting your ends out how I've just done, grab a bracket. On one end you will have a nut inserted, that's where the wheel goes. Now that faces the smooth edge of the side. Line those up with the inserts on the panel and just hand tighten 4 screws through the bracket. It's always easier to start with the short end. So that's the head foot end and the footboard end. If you have the smaller brackets, grab those. The same thing, you've got the little inserts, that's where this foot screws through. You will see in the long panel some pre-drilled holes. Line the holes up in the bracket to the holes in the panel, ensuring the screw nut is facing the smooth edge. With the smaller screws, screw the bracket into place. Attach the long rail with the foot end or the head end, either end will do. Stand the edge up, make sure the recess is facing upwards, that's where the slats slot into. Align the bracket with the long rail and just hand tighten the bolts into place. Repeat the process the other side. Now we want to lock the bracket into place. Ensure that the side panel, long side panel and the short panel are square and even. Then with your drill home until firm. If it's slightly out of line, don't worry, you can use a hammer or a mallet at the end to square it up. Fitting the headboard end to the long rails, same process. Grab the 8 remaining screws and lock the 2 brackets into place. Remembering, try and square everything up, just makes the final process a lot easier. Next we want to attach the slats. Just put this across the frame, undo the packaging. You will note that there is a fabric strip along each slat. Ensure this is facing down. It's very important that it is facing down because each slat has a pre-drilled hole which angles to the outside of the base. If you have it the other way, it angles inwards, which will miss the side rail timber. Evenly align your slats by just guiding them into place. If you find that it's a bit tight, grab your hammer and just give it a gentle nudge until the slat slots into place. With your long screws, note it is a posi drive head. Screw the slats into place. Remember, screw on the angle so to ensure the screw connects to the wood. Just make sure all the screws are flush with the piece of timber. If it's not in tight enough, it may snag the fabric when we put that into place. The final stage of pre-assembling your base, if you have one, is attaching the centre rail. There are locator holes for the brackets down the bottom and up the top. Just place the centre rail approximately in the centre and then smoothen it up to the top. With your two corner type brackets, they only fit one way so you can anchor it to the base. 6 smaller screws, 6 for the bottom and 6 for the top, place the bracket into place. You just want to make sure that the centre rail is smooth and hard up to the slat. This will avoid the slats knocking on the bed once assembled. Draw the bracket into place. You may need someone else to help fit the top bracket because it is quite awkward. Remember, make sure the centre rail is flush with the slat before screwing the bracket into place. We want to put the base back flat on the ground or on a workbench. You will note that at one end you have the 2 holes. These are for your headboard bolts. Grabbing your fabric cover, identify which end is the headboard end. On one end you'll have a seam. Make sure this goes to the side with the 4 headboard bolt holes. Once you've identified that, remove the dust cover, that's the undercover, the grey part. And then remembering the seam, place the cover over the base. To ensure a snug fit, there is a corner join. Make sure it's hard up with the corner. Go around the base and do the 3 other corners. It does get tighter as you go around the base, but by grabbing the corner it makes it a lot easier to ensure the fabric fits snugly. pull the zip right around the underframe and just double check the corners are on smooth. If you've got a workbench, flip the base over. If you haven't, it is recommended you have a second person to flip the base over. We're now going to zip the dust cover back on. Just pull up the sides to make sure the zip's over the side rails. And like putting on a jacket, just zip that cover into place. Pull up the sides, makes the process easier. Now with the pen or the screwdriver you've got, just pierce the holes where the feet fit through. You may have two roller wheels. These always go on the headboard end. That's the end where the holes are, or the seam of the fabric. This makes life easier if you want to move your bed. Fit the remaining 4 glides. Some beds have 2 glides and 2 wheels. If you've got a bigger frame, it requires 2 wheels and 4 glides. Now identifying where those holes are on the headboard panel, unzip the cover and find where those holes are. With a screwdriver, just pierce that hole through the fabric so you can attach the headboard bolts on. Repeat the process with the remaining 2 holes. I'm just putting the headboard bolts on loosely, but it is recommended you fit those through firmly. Once that's done, tip the base over and your new fabric bed base is completed.
Furniture tree.